In a quiet suburban neighborhood, where the sound of laughter and the warmth of family life filled the air, a dark secret lay hidden beneath the surface. John, a dedicated U.S. Army veteran, had always believed he was living the American dream. A loving husband and proud father of 6, he had sacrificed so much for his country, fighting bravely on distant battlefields. But little did he know, the greatest battle of his life was waiting for him at home. When a routine DNA test shattered his world, John was confronted with a truth so devastating it would change everything he thought he knew. All 6 of his children, his pride and joy, were not biologically his. The betrayal cut deep, igniting a firestorm of emotions, disbelief, anger, and a thirst for answers. How could the woman he trusted most, his wife Lisa, betray him in such a profound way? As the tension escalated, a confrontation loomed on the horizon, one that would lead to an unimaginable act of violence. What happens when a man pushed to his limits decides to take matters into his own hands? Stay with us as we unravel the chilling events that led to a crime that shocked a nation. As we delve deeper into this harrowing tale of betrayal and tragedy, we want to hear from you. This story is not just about one man's devastating discovery. It reflects the complexities of trust, love, and the consequences of infidelity that can affect anyone. Have you ever faced a situation where trust was shattered? Or do you know someone whose life was turned upside down by a similar betrayal? Your experiences and insights are invaluable, and sharing them can help others who may be navigating similar challenges. We encourage you to engage with us in the comments below. Let us know your thoughts on John and Lisa's story. What would you have done in his shoes? How do you think such situations can be prevented? Your voice matters, and together we can foster a community that supports and learns from one another. If you find this story compelling, please take a moment to like this video and share it with your friends and family. By doing so, you help us reach a larger audience and raise awareness about the critical issues surrounding trust and betrayal in relationships. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more gripping true crime stories that explore the darker sides of human nature. Join us as we continue to uncover the truths that lie beneath the surface. John had fought bravely for his country, sacrificing years of his life on distant battlefields, all while dreaming of a peaceful homecoming to his loving wife, Lisa, and their 6 beautiful children. But what he didn't know was that the very foundation of his family life was built on a lie so profound it would shatter his world. As John returned home, he was greeted with the warmth of his children's smiles and the comfort of his wife's embrace. To the outside world, they were the picture of a perfect family. Yet, behind closed doors, a storm was brewing, one that would soon unleash chaos and heartbreak. John had always trusted Lisa implicitly, believing that their love was unbreakable. But the truth was lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. It all began with a routine DNA test, a decision made out of curiosity and perhaps a desire for peace of mind. When the results arrived, they were nothing short of devastating. John's heart raced as he read the words that would change his life forever. None of his 6 children were biologically his. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound, igniting a firestorm of emotions, disbelief, anger, and a desperate need for answers. How could the woman he had trusted with his life betray him in such a profound way? As the weight of this revelation settled in, John found himself grappling with a torrent of conflicting feelings. The love he had for his children was now intertwined with a sense of loss and betrayal. The man who had fought for his country now faced the most personal battle of his life, one that would lead him down a dark path filled with rage and despair. What happens when a man, pushed to his limits by the ultimate betrayal, decides to confront the person he once loved? The stage was set for a confrontation that would not only change his life but would also send shockwaves through the community. Stay with us as we unravel the chilling events that followed, exploring the depths of human emotion and the tragic consequences of infidelity. John was not just a soldier. He was a man of honor, a dedicated U.S. Army veteran who had devoted years of his life to serving his country. His military career was marked by bravery and sacrifice, having deployed multiple times to conflict zones where he faced unimaginable dangers. Each deployment took him away from his family, but John believed wholeheartedly in his duty to protect the freedoms that many took for granted. He wore his uniform with pride, and his commitment to his country was matched only by his love for his family. Back home, John was a devoted husband to Lisa, a woman he had met during his early years in the service. Their love story began in a whirlwind of romance, fueled by shared dreams and aspirations. Lisa was supportive and understanding, often waiting for John's return with open arms and a warm smile. Together they built a life filled with laughter and joy, welcoming 6 children into the world, each one a testament to their love. The couple often shared their hopes for the future, envisioning a life where their children would grow up in a safe and nurturing environment. However, the reality of military life took its toll. John's frequent absences meant that Lisa often had to shoulder the responsibilities of parenting alone. While he was away, she managed the household, juggling the demands of raising 6 children. To the outside world, they appeared to be the quintessential family, but the pressures of separation began to strain their relationship. John relied on the strength of his love for Lisa and their children to get him through the toughest days, but he was unaware of the cracks forming in their foundation. As John fought for his country, he believed that Lisa was his steadfast partner, someone who would remain loyal and true. He trusted her implicitly, never questioning her commitment to their family. But as the years passed, the distance created by his military service began to breed insecurities and doubts that would soon be confirmed in the most devastating way. Lisa, feeling the weight of her husband's absence, began to seek comfort outside their marriage. The emotional void left by John's deployments opened the door to temptation, leading her to engage in affairs that would ultimately shatter the trust between them. While John was risking his life for their future, Lisa was living a double life, one that would culminate in a betrayal so profound it would change everything. The couple's relationship, once filled with love and promise, became a facade, hiding the turmoil that lay beneath. John's unwavering dedication to his family blinded him to the reality of Lisa's actions. He believed that their love could withstand any challenge, but the truth was far more complicated. As John returned home, he was greeted with the familiar chaos of family life: children running, laughter echoing, and Lisa's warm embrace. Yet, beneath the surface, a storm was brewing, one that would soon unleash chaos and heartbreak. The revelation of the DNA test was just around the corner, and with it, the unraveling of a life built on trust and love. What happens when the man who fought for his country must now fight for his family's truth? The answers lie ahead, and they are more chilling than you can imagine. The day John received the results of the DNA test was one that would forever be etched in his memory, a day that began like any other but would end in a shattering revelation. He had decided to take the test out of a mix of curiosity and a desire for peace of mind. After all, he had always been a devoted father, and the thought of his children's well-being was paramount. But as he sat in his living room, the envelope in his hands felt heavier than lead, a foreboding weight that hinted at the storm about to break. With a deep breath, John tore open the envelope, his heart racing with anticipation. The words on the paper blurred as he read the results, disbelief washing over him like a cold wave. None of his 6 children were biologically his. The world around him seemed to collapse in an instant, the laughter of his children fading into a haunting silence. How could this be? The children he had nurtured, loved, and sacrificed for were not his own? The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound, igniting a firestorm of emotions that left him reeling. In that moment, John felt as if the ground had been pulled from beneath him. The life he had built, the trust he had placed in Lisa, all crumbled in an instant. Anger surged through him, mingling with disbelief and heartbreak. How could the woman he had fought for, the woman he had trusted with his life, betray him in such a profound way? The questions raced through his mind like a whirlwind. Had she ever loved him? Were those moments of joy and laughter with his children all a lie? As the initial shock began to fade, a sense of desperation took hold. John felt an overwhelming need for answers, a need to confront Lisa and demand the truth. The emotional fallout was immense. He was not just grappling with the loss of his children's paternity but also with the realization that his entire marriage had been built on deception. The man who had fought for his country now found himself in the most personal battle of his life, one that would test the very limits of his sanity and resolve. In the days that followed, John's mind was a tumultuous sea of conflicting emotions. He oscillated between anger and sorrow, feeling as though he had been robbed of his identity as a father. The children he had raised, taught, and loved were now strangers in a way, their very existence tied to a betrayal that felt insurmountable. Each time he looked at them, he was reminded of the lie that had been woven into the fabric of their lives. The confrontation with Lisa loomed large in his mind, a dark cloud that threatened to unleash a storm of emotions. He knew he had to face her, to demand answers, but the thought of that conversation filled him with dread. What would he say? How could he articulate the pain and betrayal he felt? The man who had once been so confident and strong now felt vulnerable and lost, caught in a web of deceit that he had never seen coming. As John prepared for the inevitable confrontation, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a nightmare that would change everything. The emotional turmoil was palpable, and the stakes had never been higher. What would happen when he finally confronted Lisa? Would he find the answers he sought, or would the truth be even more devastating than he could imagine? Stay with us as we delve into the heart of this tragic story, exploring the confrontation that would set off a chain of events leading to an unimaginable act of violence. The truth is often more chilling than fiction, and in this case, it would prove to be a catalyst for a tragedy that would leave a community in shock. What happens when love turns to rage and trust is shattered beyond repair? The answers lie ahead, and they are more disturbing than you can fathom. As the dust settled from John's devastating revelation, it became crucial to understand the other side of this tragic story, the perspective of Lisa, the woman at the center of the storm. To many, she was simply a devoted wife and mother, but beneath that facade lay a complex web of emotions, choices, and motivations that would ultimately lead to betrayal. Lisa had always been the supportive partner, the one who stood by John during his deployments, managing the household and raising their 6 children. However, the weight of her responsibilities began to take a toll. The long stretches of separation from John left her feeling isolated and overwhelmed. While John fought for their country, Lisa was left to navigate the challenges of parenting alone, and the emotional strain began to manifest in ways she never anticipated. In the absence of her husband, Lisa found herself yearning for connection and validation. The loneliness crept in, and she sought solace in the arms of other men. It started innocently enough, flirtations with friends and acquaintances, but soon escalated into full-blown affairs. Each encounter provided a temporary escape from her reality, a fleeting moment of intimacy that filled the void left by John's absence. Yet, with each choice, she drifted further from the life she had built with her husband. Lisa's relationships with these men were not just physical, they were emotional lifelines. She confided in them, shared her struggles, and sought comfort in their attention. The thrill of being desired reignited a spark within her, one that had dimmed during the years of raising children and managing a household. But as the affairs continued, the guilt began to gnaw at her conscience. She was living a double life, torn between her love for John and the excitement of her secret relationships. Despite the thrill, Lisa was acutely aware of the risks involved. She knew that if John ever found out, it would shatter their family. Yet, the allure of these affairs blinded her to the potential consequences. In her mind, she justified her actions, convincing herself that she was merely seeking happiness in a life that felt increasingly unfulfilling. The emotional turmoil she experienced was profound, as she grappled with the dichotomy of her desires and her responsibilities. As the days turned into weeks, Lisa's guilt began to manifest in other ways. She became more secretive, her demeanor shifting as she juggled the demands of motherhood with the weight of her infidelity. The tension in the household grew, and while John remained blissfully unaware of her actions, Lisa felt the strain of her deception. The love she once felt for John was now intertwined with shame and fear, creating a toxic mix that would soon explode. When John received the DNA test results, Lisa's world began to unravel. The very foundation of their marriage was built on trust, and now that trust was shattered. As John confronted her, Lisa was faced with the reality of her choices. The man she had betrayed was not just her husband. He was the father of her children, a man who had fought for their family while she had sought comfort elsewhere. The weight of her actions bore down on her, and in that moment she realized the full extent of the devastation she had caused. The confrontation that followed was inevitable. Lisa was forced to confront not only John's pain but also her own. The emotional fallout from the revelation would not only impact their marriage but would also have lasting effects on their children, who were caught in the crossfire of their parents' choices. We must consider the broader implications of Lisa's actions. What drives a person to betray their partner? How do the choices we make in moments of weakness ripple through the lives of those we love? The consequences of betrayal are often far-reaching, and in this case, they would prove to be devastating. What happens when love turns to rage and trust is shattered beyond repair? As the emotional turmoil reached a boiling point, the atmosphere in the Thompson household became increasingly charged. John, grappling with the betrayal that had shattered his world, was on the brink of confronting Lisa. The weight of his discovery hung heavily in the air, a palpable tension that seemed to seep into every corner of their home. The children, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface, continued their daily routines, playing and laughing, while their parents prepared for a confrontation that would change everything. The night of the confrontation arrived, and the air was thick with unspoken words. John had spent the day wrestling with his emotions, pacing the floors of their home, replaying the moments that had led to this inevitable clash. He felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and a desperate need for answers. How could Lisa have done this to him? How could she have betrayed not just him but their entire family? The questions tormented him, fueling a fire of rage that was impossible to extinguish. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across their living room, John finally summoned the courage to confront Lisa. He found her in the kitchen, preparing dinner, her back turned to him. The familiar sight of her, the woman he had loved and trusted, now felt like a cruel reminder of the deception that had unfolded. With a deep breath, he called her name, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of tension. "Lisa, we need to talk." The words hung in the air, heavy with significance. Lisa turned slowly, her expression shifting from surprise to apprehension. She could sense the gravity of the moment, the storm that was about to break. John's heart raced as he watched her face, searching for any sign of remorse or understanding. But all he saw was fear, a fear that mirrored his own. "Is it about the test?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. John nodded, his fists clenching at his sides. "We can't keep pretending everything is fine. You need to tell me the truth about our children." The confrontation escalated quickly, emotions flaring as John unleashed the pent-up frustration and hurt that had been building inside him. He demanded answers, his voice rising as he recounted the years of trust he had placed in her, the sacrifices he had made for their family. Each accusation felt like a dagger, piercing through the fragile facade of their marriage. Lisa, cornered and desperate, attempted to defend herself, but her words fell flat against the weight of John's pain. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "I was lonely. I thought you were gone forever." But John could not hear her excuses. The betrayal felt insurmountable, and the emotional intensity of their confrontation reached a fever pitch. The room crackled with tension, each word exchanged like a spark igniting a powder keg. John's heart raced, fueled by a mix of anger and heartbreak, while Lisa's desperation morphed into panic. The confrontation between John and Lisa escalated, the emotional intensity reached a breaking point that would lead to an unimaginable act of violence. The air was thick with tension, each word exchanged a dagger, cutting deeper into the fabric of their already frayed relationship. In that moment, the man Lisa once loved transformed into a figure consumed by rage and despair. The argument spiraled out of control, fueled by years of betrayal and unspoken pain. John, feeling cornered and overwhelmed, could no longer contain the storm brewing within him. In a fit of rage, he lashed out, his emotions boiling over in a way that would forever alter the course of their lives. As the heated exchange reached its peak, John's frustration morphed into something darker. In a moment of raw, unfiltered emotion, he grabbed a nearby kitchen knife, the glint of the blade reflecting the chaos of the moment. Lisa, sensing the shift in his demeanor, felt a chill run down her spine. The realization that this confrontation could turn deadly hung in the air, but it was too late to turn back. In a tragic instant, the argument escalated from words to violence. John, driven by a whirlwind of emotions, anger, betrayal, and despair, struck Lisa with the knife. The act was swift and brutal, a culmination of pent-up rage that had been festering for far too long. As the reality of what he had done sank in, the horror of the situation became all too clear. In the aftermath of the attack, John's mind raced. The gravity of his actions crashed over him like a tidal wave, leaving him in a state of shock. He had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, and the consequences of that moment would haunt him forever. In a panic, he took the horrifying step of beheading Lisa, a gruesome act that would seal his fate and transform a family tragedy into a chilling crime that would capture the attention of the nation. As the reality of the crime unfolded, the silence that followed was deafening. The home that had once been filled with laughter and love was now a crime scene, marked by the remnants of a life shattered by betrayal and violence. The children, unaware of the horror that had just transpired, would soon be thrust into a world of chaos and heartbreak, their lives forever altered by the actions of their parents. In the chilling aftermath of the brutal confrontation, John Thompson found himself engulfed in a whirlwind of panic and desperation. The gravity of his actions weighed heavily on him, and as the reality of what he had done began to sink in, a dark instinct for self-preservation took hold. In that moment, he made a fateful decision that would lead him down a path of further horror. With Lisa's lifeless body lying before him, John's mind raced. He knew that the consequences of his actions would be severe, and the thought of facing the legal repercussions was unbearable. Driven by fear and a desperate need to cover up the crime, he resolved to eliminate any trace of Lisa. The chilling thought of dismemberment crossed his mind, a gruesome act that he believed would ensure his freedom. In a frantic state, John retrieved the same kitchen knife that had been used in the attack. The blade, now stained with the remnants of his crime, felt heavy in his hand. He knew that what he was about to do was unthinkable, yet the desperation to escape the consequences of his actions clouded his judgment. With trembling hands, he began the horrific task of severing Lisa's head from her body, a gruesome act that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Once the deed was done, John faced the grim reality of what he had created. He was now not just a husband who had lost his wife. He was a murderer, a man who had committed an unspeakable act of violence. The weight of his actions pressed down on him, but the urgency to dispose of the evidence propelled him forward. He knew he had to act quickly before anyone discovered the truth. In a calculated frenzy, John gathered Lisa's dismembered body parts, placing them into large trash bags. The sight of what he had done filled him with a mix of horror and resolve. He believed that by discarding her remains in remote swamps, he could ensure that no one would ever find her. The idea of hiding the evidence in the murky depths of the water seemed like a twisted solution to his problem. Under the cover of darkness, John drove to a series of secluded swamps, each one more isolated than the last. The moonlight cast eerie shadows as he navigated the winding roads, his heart racing with fear and adrenaline. He stopped at the first swamp, the stillness of the water reflecting the turmoil within him. With trembling hands, he discarded the bags into the murky depths, watching as they sank beneath the surface, taking with them the remnants of his life with Lisa. But John's desperation did not end there. He continued to drive, stopping at multiple locations, each time disposing of more parts of Lisa's body. The act of discarding her remains felt like a macabre ritual, a desperate attempt to erase the evidence of his crime. With each toss into the swamp, he convinced himself that he was outsmarting the law, that he could escape the consequences of his actions. As he returned home, a sense of false relief washed over him. He believed he had successfully covered his tracks, that the darkness of the swamps would keep his secret safe. But deep down, he knew that the weight of his actions would not easily be buried. The horror of what he had done lingered in the corners of his mind, a haunting reminder that no amount of physical evidence could erase the truth. In the days following Lisa Thompson's disappearance, the community was gripped by concern and confusion. Friends and family, initially unaware of the dark truth lurking beneath the surface, began to mobilize in search of Lisa. The absence of a mother, a wife, and a friend was felt deeply, and the outpouring of support was palpable. Flyers were distributed, social media posts circulated, and local news outlets reported on the case, amplifying the urgency of finding her. As the search efforts intensified, law enforcement became involved. Initially, they treated Lisa's disappearance as a missing person case, but as time passed without any leads, the investigation took a more serious turn. Detectives began to scrutinize John's behavior, noting inconsistencies in his statements and a growing sense of unease surrounding his demeanor. The community, once supportive, began to whisper about the possibility that John knew more than he was letting on. The turning point came when investigators decided to search the nearby swamps where John had disposed of Lisa's remains. Utilizing cadaver dogs trained to detect human remains, the authorities combed through the dense underbrush and murky waters. The search was methodical, but the atmosphere was thick with tension. Each moment felt like a race against time, as the hope of finding Lisa alive dwindled. Then, in a chilling discovery, the dogs alerted their handlers to a specific area within the swamp. As investigators began to dig, the reality of the situation became all too clear. They unearthed bags containing dismembered body parts, and the horror of what had transpired began to unfold. The forensic evidence would soon confirm the identity of the remains as Lisa Thompson, a tragic end to a life filled with promise and love. The news of the discovery sent shockwaves through the community. The search that had begun with hope now turned into a nightmare, as the reality of Lisa's fate became undeniable. Friends and family were left to grapple with the devastating loss, their grief compounded by the knowledge of the violent circumstances surrounding her death. The emotional toll was profound, as they struggled to comprehend how someone they loved could meet such a tragic end. As the investigation progressed, John was arrested and charged with murder. The legal consequences of his actions were severe, and the case quickly garnered national attention. The courtroom became a battleground, with prosecutors painting a vivid picture of a man who had committed an unspeakable act of violence against his wife. The evidence was overwhelming, and the prosecution sought justice for Lisa, determined to hold John accountable for his actions. The trial was a harrowing experience for all involved. Lisa's family sat in the courtroom, their hearts heavy with grief as they listened to the details of her murder. The emotional weight of the proceedings was palpable, as they were forced to confront the reality of the violence that had ripped their family apart. John, once a beloved husband and father, was now a figure of contempt, his actions casting a long shadow over the lives of those he had once cherished. As the trial unfolded, the impact of the crime extended beyond the courtroom. The children, now orphaned by the loss of their mother and the incarceration of their father, faced an uncertain future. The community, once a close-knit support system, was left fractured by the tragedy. Friends and neighbors struggled to reconcile the image of the Thompsons they had known with the horrific reality that had emerged. The media coverage exploded, capturing the attention of the nation. News outlets, both local and national, were quick to report on the shocking events, framing the story as a cautionary tale of betrayal, violence, and the dark undercurrents of domestic life. Headlines blared, drawing in viewers and readers with phrases like, "horrific murder in suburbia," and "a family torn apart by betrayal." The sensational nature of the crime fueled public interest, transforming the Thompson case into a gripping narrative that resonated with many. The media's portrayal of John Thompson was particularly striking. Initially, he was depicted as a grieving husband, a man who had lost his wife under tragic circumstances. However, as the investigation progressed and the evidence against him mounted, the narrative shifted dramatically. John became the face of a murderer, a man whose actions shocked a community and left a trail of devastation in their wake. The public's perception of him morphed from sympathy to outrage, as more details emerged about the brutal nature of the crime and the lengths he went to cover it up. Social media played a significant role in shaping public opinion. Platforms like Twitter and Facebook became battlegrounds for discussions about the case, with users sharing their thoughts, theories, and emotional reactions. Hashtags related to the case trended, and the public engaged in heated debates about justice, accountability, and the complexities of domestic violence. Many expressed their outrage at John's actions, while others sought to understand the psychological factors that could lead a person to commit such a heinous act. The case sparked conversations about the signs of domestic abuse, the importance of mental health resources, and the need for open dialogue about the challenges faced by couples in crisis. The broader implications of the Thompson case extended far beyond the courtroom. It served as a stark reminder of the hidden struggles many families face, often masked by a facade of normalcy. The tragedy highlighted the urgent need for awareness and education surrounding domestic violence, as well as the importance of providing support for those in abusive relationships. Advocacy groups seized the opportunity to raise awareness, using Lisa's story to emphasize the need for resources and intervention programs that could help prevent similar tragedies in the future. Moreover, the case prompted discussions about the legal system's handling of domestic violence cases. Many questioned whether enough was being done to protect victims and hold perpetrators accountable. The public outcry for justice in Lisa's name resonated with those who had experienced similar situations, amplifying calls for reform and greater protections for victims of domestic abuse. As the trial approached its conclusion, the community remained on edge, awaiting the verdict that would determine John's fate. The emotional toll of the case was palpable, as friends and family of both Lisa and John grappled with the fallout of the tragedy. The once close-knit community was now divided, with some supporting John and others rallying for justice for Lisa. The case had transformed relationships, leaving scars that would take years to heal. In the end, the Thompson case was not just a story of murder. It was a reflection of the complexities of human relationships and the devastating consequences of betrayal. It served as a powerful reminder of the importance of communication, trust, and the need for support in times of crisis. As the public continued to grapple with the implications of the case, one question lingered in the air: how can we prevent such tragedies from occurring in our own lives and communities? How can our soldiers have time for their wives while they are away at the battlefield? I mean, these women have feelings and bodily cravings that need to be satisfied too, right? As we reflect on the tragic story of Lisa and John Thompson, we are confronted with the harrowing reality of betrayal, anger, and the devastating consequences that can arise from a relationship built on secrets and lies. John's fury over Lisa's infidelity, compounded by the shocking revelation that their 6 children were not biologically his, created a perfect storm of emotions that ultimately led to a horrific act of violence. This case serves as a chilling reminder of how unchecked emotions can spiral out of control, leading to irreversible consequences. John's feelings of betrayal and humiliation, intensified by the pressures of his military service, clouded his judgment and pushed him to a breaking point. The tragedy of Lisa's murder is not just a story of a man who lost control. It is a stark illustration of how deep-seated issues within a relationship can culminate in unimaginable violence. The implications of this case extend far beyond the courtroom. It raises critical questions about trust, fidelity, and the importance of open communication in relationships. How often do we allow anger and resentment to fester, rather than addressing the underlying issues? The Thompson case challenges us to consider the fragility of love and the devastating impact that betrayal can have on families. As we close this chapter, we must ask ourselves, what can we learn from this tragedy? How can we foster healthier relationships built on trust and understanding? The story of Lisa and John Thompson is a cautionary tale that urges us to confront our issues before they escalate into something far more destructive. Thank you for joining us on this journey through a story that is both heartbreaking and thought-provoking. We encourage you to share your thoughts and insights in the comments below. Together, we can continue the conversation about love, trust, and the importance of seeking help in times of need. Your voice matters, and it is through dialogue that we can hope to create a safer, more compassionate world. If you found this narrative compelling and thought-provoking, we encourage you to take a moment to engage with our content. Please like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights not only enrich our community but also help us understand the impact of these stories on our lives. We want to hear from you. What lessons do you take away from Lisa's story? How can we, as a society, work together to prevent such tragedies in the future? If you're passionate about true crime and want to delve deeper into similar stories, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll stay updated on our latest content, ensuring you never miss a moment of the gripping narratives we bring to you. For more engaging true crime stories, check out our playlists featuring cases that explore the complexities of human relationships, the dark side of love, and the quest for justice. Each story is meticulously crafted to keep you on the edge of your seat, providing insights into the human psyche and the societal issues that often accompany these tragic events. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Together, let's continue to explore the stories that shape our understanding of crime, justice, and the human experience. Your engagement is vital in keeping these important conversations alive. Until next time, stay safe and see you in our next video.